Hi, I'm Shelley Wood and this is my tiny sewing room where I make doll clothes sewing videos. Today I'm going to show you how to make a shift style dress for Crissy dolls and other dolls with a similar body size or body shape. Today's felt dress has a sailor style collar, and your doll can wear it as a dress or pair it with my free capri pants pattern for a fun day of beachcombing. Before we begin, please go to shelleywood.com to download my free printable PDF sewing pattern. Use the pattern to cut out all these pieces from felt. The pattern includes a ribbon measurement. Use this measurement to cut 2 ribbons. I'm using 1/8 inch or 3mm offray ribbon. Lay one of your bodice backs on top of the bodice front. Now, it's rare for felt to matter, but if it does, keep right sides together. Sew across the shoulder. I'm using a blue thread here. It helps so you can see it a little better. Lay the other back on top of the front, just like you see me doing here, and once again sew across that shoulder just like you did the other one. If your felt is particularly thick like mine is, clip the shoulder seam before you press it. That's what I'm doing here. Be very careful that you don't go through your seam, of course. Flatten the garment out like this and press both shoulder seams. Now, children who are learning to sew, of course, will need adult supervision. If the sleeve opening has a little notch like mine, clip that away with a pair of sharp scissors. It just makes for a clean edge. Be careful again not to cut through that seam. Now your garment should look something like this. Okay, set the garment aside for a moment and we'll work with just the collar for a little while. Lay one of the collar backs on top of the collar front, like you see me doing here, and then sew across that shoulder area. You're going to finger press this seam to kind of open it up, and then use an iron to press the seam flat. Turn the collar to the right side now so you can't see your seam, and then lay the collar back against the collar front, just like you see me doing here. Sew across this shoulder area as well. Now your collar looks like this. Once again, finger press the seam and then press with an iron. Turn your collar over to the right side again and baste your ribbon along the collar's outer edge. I recommend that you keep your ribbon a ½ centimeter from the edge. If you need help with the baste stitch, I have a tutorial for that. Just look in the description below this video on YouTube for my basting tutorial. Expect the ribbon to look wavy as you sew your curve. Now that's going to change. In this red version of the collar, it's really prominent. The waviness is especially noticeable, so it's normal. And you may also find that your ribbon is a little too long. I like to do that so that you have extra. And if so, you can fold it back to hide the extra bit, or you can just trim off the excess ribbon. I just hate coming up short. For trimmed ribbons, dab a little Fray Check on the ends. And now what you're going to do is whip stitch around one side of the ribbon. If you need help with your whip stitch, I have a tutorial for that. It's also in the links below. You'll notice I'm whip stitching the inside. Once you've finished stitching along that one side, flip the collar over to the underside and you're going to seam rip your baste stitch. Be real careful that you don't rip out the whip stitch. Then whip stitch the other edge of the ribbon for a more finished look. Now that your baste stitch is all gone, you should find that your ribbon doesn't look as wavy. Use Fray Check at the bottom of the remaining loose ribbon. Remember, you cut 2, and tie this loose ribbon in a bow and then set it aside. Okay, place the collar's right side down against the wrong side of the bodice neckline. That's tricky, so here I am showing you how to do that. Notice I line up my seams and then I line up the back edge of the garment where the closure will be. Pin the collar in place, keeping your seams aligned. Stitch along the inside of the neck, attaching the collar to the bodice. The edges of the collar should match the bodice. If they don't, you'll need to seam rip your shoulder seams. Carefully clip the seam you've just finished, and again, you want to make sure you don't go through that seam. And once again, if the collar doesn't quite fit right, you need to go back to your shoulder seams, seam rip those, and re-sew them, paying careful attention to your seam allowance. Now your dress or tunic is going to look like this with that clipped collar. Flip the collar over and press it to keep it in place. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to do that. So I like to turn it to the wrong side and then, or to the right side, and then pull it through the collar hole. There we go. It does look a little bit wobbly, but we'll fix that. If your collar doesn't want to stay down, which is actually pretty normal for collars, I recommend using Niagara spray starch. Fold the bodice in half like this to find the exact middle of the bodice front. Mark the middle with a straight pin. Unfortunately, I used a yellow straight pin, so it's hard to see. But sew the ribbon to the collar at the exact middle where the straight pin is. Stitch all the way through both layers of your fabric to help hold the collar in place. It's also good to tack the collar down at the shoulder seams too, with a quick knot that goes through collar and the dress as well. When you flip your dress over, it's going to look like this. It's turning out so cute. Lay one of the backs over the top of the front, and I'll show you how to do that. So you just flip it like that, and then line up that side seam. Sew from the underarm area to the bottom of the dress or tunic, and then do the same thing for the other side seam. So once again, we flip it and then we line up that side seam. Sew from the underarm area to the bottom of the dress or tunic. Invert your garment. So you're going to flip it right side out, just like you see me doing here. And that collar is finally starting to lay down like you want it to. Press the side seams. Add some snaps down the back. I recommend size 4-0 Dritz snaps. And now you're ready to try it on your doll. Crissy is so much fun to dress. For more free printable sewing patterns for making doll clothes to fit dolls of many shapes and all different sizes, please remember to visit my website, shelleywood.com. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy my videos and my free patterns, please share them on social media. It actually helps my website grow when you help spread the word.